Morning everyone, this is a short video on complex sentences. There's a link below to some other videos on other grammatical features including the simple, compound and minor sentences, as well as a link to these slides if you want them. Now before we get into complex sentences, it's important to understand what clauses are. As mentioned in some of the other videos, sentences are made up of things called clauses. Now these are just parts of a sentence that contains a verb. Now there are two main types of clause. A main clause, sometimes called an independent clause, and a subordinate, and these are sometimes called dependent clauses. And this is how they work. A main clause consists of a verb and a subject, a thing that does the verb. A main clause can also stand by itself, and it makes complete sense on its own. I love pizza. She'd always wanted a house. Ragnar hated violence. These all make sense by themselves. They all have one verb, and they all have a subject. So they're all main clauses. And yes, these are all examples of simple sentences too. Now subordinate clauses, sometimes called dependent clauses, don't make sense by themselves. They've got to have a main clause for them to make sense. Examples include, although it was fun, whereas if you do it, despite knowing it was wrong, and if you listen to my voice, you can hear that they're not full sentences, they're just waiting to be finished. Now they're called subordinate clauses because they are of less importance than a main clause. They are dependent on main clauses. Many subordinate clauses also have something called subordinating conjunctions. Now there are way too many to list, but some of the main ones are listed here. They join the subordinate clause to the main clause. And if a clause has one of these, it might be a subordinate clause, which would make the sentence a complex sentence. So read through the list here and try to identify which of these clauses are main clauses and which are subordinate clauses. I've removed the punctuation so the full stops don't give it away. Pause the video, read it out loud, and ask yourself, does it make sense by itself? And here are the answers. The main clauses are in blue. These ones make sense by themselves. The subordinate clauses are in green. These ones need something else for them to make grammatical sense. Give yourself a mark out of 10. Okay, so now we get main clauses and subordinate clauses. It makes explaining complex sentences much easier. A complex sentence is a sentence that includes a subordinate clause. If it's got a subordinate clause, it's a complex sentence. Examples include, George was scared of the forest even though he knew it was safe. When he thought about it, he knew it was a silly idea. George's dad, despite knowing it was pointless, tried to reassure George. Now I've highlighted the main clauses in blue and the subordinate clause in yellow. Notice how the subordinate clause can go quite easily at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end of the sentence. It's important to note that a sentence can have more than one subordinate clause in it too. Let's take this sentence for example. After scoring the winning goal, Charlie, who was congratulated by her teammates, felt proud of herself. On this one, the yellow after scoring the winning goal is subordinate. The blue, Charlie felt proud of herself, is the main clause, and the orange bit is a subordinate clause in the middle of the main clause. This is known as a relative clause. Pause the video and have a go at labelling the complex sentences in this list. Now, sometimes you may get asked why a particular sentence type was used. Obviously, a writer can have a bunch of different reasons for using a complex sentence, and they can have a bunch of different effects on the reader, and it always depends on what the text as a whole is about. But here are some common reasons that a writer might use a complex sentence. Now, it can show the relationship between clauses, for example, cause and effect. I did this because of this reason. Complex sentences can show complex thoughts. They can be used to show a character's intelligence or education or sophistication. They can be used to show the way that a character speaks. They can be used to make the reader focus on a particular detail or a specific part of the sentence. Or they can be used simply to add detail. Never write that it makes the reader want to read on. No one, in the history of the planet, was about to put a book down and then said, "Oh, hang on, a complex sentence has been used. I must carry on reading." That just doesn't happen, so why write it? And here's the answers to the last activity. Give yourself a mark out of 10, and if you got any of the answers wrong, see if you can work out the reason why. And why not challenge yourself? Have a go at reading through this extract from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and identifying the complex sentences. Remember, the key is finding the subordinate clauses. Bonus points if you can come up with a theory that explains why the writer might have chosen a complex sentence over another sentence type for a specific example. Pause the video and give this task a go. And that's all for today's video. I hope you found it useful, and if you did, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons for more videos. Thanks for watching, and happy revising.